I wanted to just ask a quick question. So I'm Jules, if you haven't been sick of my voice already yet. I'm one of the founders of Enzo Collective, and I'm here with 3 amazing founders. Also, how many of you have heard of Guild, Disco, or Sona? Raise your hand and make some noise. We have literally the best people on this panel. When Maggie asked me to moderate it, I was so excited just to get everyone's insight and people that I look up to every day. So I wanted to just give you guys a little quick intro to yourselves. If you could just say your name and what you guys are working on.
Hi, everyone. I'm Reka, founder of Guild XYZ and CMO. We are a access automation and membership automation tool and infrastructure.
Hey guys, my name is Evin McMullen. I am the co-founder of disco.xyz, where we make it easy for you to carry around data about yourself and to issue data to your users in Web3 beyond financial information on the chain. Thank you so much to SheFi and Maggie for having us today. Really excited for this conversation.
Hi guys, I'm Laura. I'm the founder of Sona and CEO, and we're like a music streaming and marketplace protocol that's basically using DeFi primitives to pay out streaming and give sort of artists a little more agency and like control over the culture that they create.
Amazing. So I just wanted to go in depth on your first year of being the founder, and what was that aha moment that you were like, wow, damn, I want to kill this and make this product because I've been thinking about it for forever?
Oh man. Within that first year, right before?
Maybe before.
Yeah, so I think, sort of the origin of Sona, I won't say the whole thing, but I used to draw a lot of protocol sketches because I was a protocol designer and a product designer in a past life. And this protocol specifically was something that I designed so that my mom, who didn't know anything about crypto, could come in with music and leave with capital. And I think the thing that really made me go, okay, I got to build this, was when I met my co-founder on a plane going to Art Basel, who's a really big shot musician, heard about this protocol sketch, and she was like, wait, this could change the music industry. Like, you gotta build this. And I was like, if this could solve for like a mom and this musician, it's probably gonna solve for a lot of artists. So that was my big aha moment, and dropped everything to go build it.
Awesome. I think for me, I had spent many years working on identity primitives and different structures for off-chain data, and it occurred to me that we're at this perfect moment in the Web3 ecosystem where we need apps that do things, and that means we need more than data about just money. We have these awesome data structures that work with the keys we already have, but there's nowhere on a screen to look at them once you interact with them, and there's no way to create an API that dispenses them. So we have all the pieces that we need. We have all these awesome organizations, from governmental bodies to entities like Consensus to entities like Microsoft, all working on the same page, right? From Polkadot to Bitcoin to TradFi to Ethereum. And so all the pieces seemed to line together. The timing of the market seemed great. And I couldn't figure out why no one was putting the pieces together. And so initially I thought like, oh, well, I'll just go tell a bunch of other people and someone will do it because it's a good idea. And in a lot of those conversations, the response I got was, why don't you just do this? And it was a conversation with one of my teachers from when I was in undergrad over 10 years ago, who herself is a founder in the crypto space. And that conversation basically led to, well, if you see this problem, you think someone should build it, the people you're trying to encourage to build it, don't think that it should be their #1, pursuit right now, just try it. You can't engage these opportunities unless you give them a shot. And it was literally, I know it sounds excruciatingly simple, like annoyingly simple, but having someone who I looked up to say, you are capable of this, helped me give myself permission to give it a try.
For us, I've been building communities ARL before, and also ventured more into like a bunch of different social media platforms for fun because I just love doing it and love connecting people. What always sucked is whenever you go and try to build a new thing, you can't like transfer anything you've built, any of the network, any of the connections, any of that data. And I was like, this is extremely infuriating that the connections are not made. And so the websites and the platforms are holding a lot of data that we cannot use, and your network is locked in there. But the aha moment came more from when I started working with my co-founder, Raz. He participated in a lot of like very early crypto investment communities, and those were all organized around tokens. It was more before the time of NFTs became the thing, the major thing that we organize around. It was solely based on how much you hold of the token. So very much like whale markets were going on. And so we were like, hey, what if we make this more granular? What if we connect things, platforms, and kind of abstract social structures that are within the crypto-ish scene and make it much more available in a not crypto way? And so that's how it started, and that's how we like collided and found our shared passion, and that was the aha moment.
That's amazing. I think something that I always think about is I feel like I'm always the crazy founder talking to every single person in the room and just kind of proving what we're doing. And it's always so great to hear from other founders that feel that same way. We're like, oh, wait, I can do it. Great. Awesome. Fuck it. Let's do it. So I think something that I'm always thinking on is challenges, right? We always talk about this kind of founders therapy, and I think that's the best feeling ever, when you're talking to other founders and you're like, fuck, I literally have the same problem. So I would love to hear from you guys, what has been something very challenging, whether it's been this year, in the past when you first started, and also proving yourself as well. Like as we talk about it from the very beginning, that aha moment, but it doesn't just stop there, it continues. It's always like you're proving yourself in some.
I think one of the things that's pretty low key, and I did not expect that it's going to be so important moving on with your product and how it's going. So we've been doing this for over 2 years. Guild has been going for over 2 years now. And at this point, it's all down to the relationships. And that's why we just talked that it would be lovely to have the same questions as the investors had, because it's so much down to the team. It's a marriage. It truly is a marriage to your co-founders. The rest of the team, everyone in it, it's so important of how you get along, what personality types are in the team, do they match the responsibilities well, and how can you kind of go around with each other's weaknesses and strengths. I did not expect that to be such a big part of the thing, because you can build a wonderful product, but if you can't, a lot of the scaling comes from how can we best support each other and work together. So that was a pretty interesting thing that I think not a lot of founders prepare for. And it requires like proper, almost like education, therapy-like situations, and a lot of commitment to that, to self-growth and like learning your executive functions, your strengths, your own weaknesses, and lose a lot of ego in that process. And that's, yeah, I agree.
Ego is one of the worst things when you think about it, but hey, we deal with it.
Well, and you make, I think, a really outstanding point here, that being self-aware in your team and your team's relationship to others is a continuous, evolving challenge, but one that you choose every single morning when you wake up. And so, some of the best advice I've ever gotten years ago is, people want to work with people they like, and everybody is answering to someone. And so whether that's a protocol, answering to the need to sell block space, an entity answering to an investor, a product answering to a user, the different types of incentives that affect everyone in the systems that we interact with are also informed by whether or not they like those interactions. So I think, similar to you, what is a continuous, surprise and learning opportunity for me is that an opportunity to collaborate with another team, an opportunity to introduce a new product or a new feature is so much more than whether or not it is a good idea. Bad ideas get adoption all the time. In fact, we pay people to do things that might not be great ideas a lot in Web3. And so contemplating the relationship between, how you engage with your team as individuals, how your team engages with others, how you engage with your community, and being mindful of the incentives that drive everyone at that table can also help you have a more relating conversation. If you understand what another team is looking for, you can approach them and say, hey, I know these are your goals. Here are ours, and here's something we can do together that will pay off both of them. As opposed to showing up and saying, this is what I do, you must do this in order to work with me, et cetera, because no one's gonna like each other, and we're not gonna have fun paying off our goals that way anyway.
Yes. I think the biggest challenge is kind of twofold on my end. One was there's a lot of like imposter syndrome that you get over to like start something and start a company, and you hype yourself up a lot just to take that first step. And the first few months of being a founder, I asked for help from everyone. Right? It was a lot of like, you're the expert. Tell me why. Help me understand, and then we move forward. And I think in the past few months, the inverse has been like, okay, now that I've like sort of dissolved that ego, taken the help, is now learning how to trust your gut and also put your foot down as a founder and like trust your intuition, because at the end of the day, people joined your team because of you and because of your vision. Yeah, thank you. So that's the twofold, is like first dissolve the ego and then find a way to bring it back, but like powerfully and like in your flavor.
Yeah, I always say ask more questions, even if they're stupid questions, because you never know where that conversation is going to lead you. I always think about this on fundraising as well. And I think as a first-time founder, when you first start, it's like you have so much motivation, you have so much drive. You're like, I'm going to kill it. This is great. I love fundraising. It's going to be awesome. But I would love to hear your guys' first rodeo, because all of you guys have raised several rounds. I would love to hear that first moment. And then how did you motivate yourself? What advice do you have to some of these founders that are going to be raising for their first time?
Oh boy. I think the thing that I bumped into a lot that I didn't expect to was a lot of prejudice on the fact that I was a non-technical founder and an inability for funds to look at the team that had been built. So it's kind of like, as a founder, you're not going to be the expert in everything and in every piece of this business, but your ability to create a team is so important. So a big piece of advice is like, don't be disappointed that prejudice will probably be there from the beginning, and find ways to like highlight the strength of what you're doing, your conviction, and your team in your pitch. And if you get any sense of like someone not believing in you as a person, kind of move on quickly, because it is just like 1,000 conversations and then it does hit. But it's exhausting and it can be really hard. And maybe a secret piece of advice is, if you don't hear back in a week, keep moving, keep talking, because it probably means it's not going to happen.
Okay, so I know that we're all, of course, very focused on our Web3 work all the time, but show of hands, has anyone binge-watched a television show in the last year? All right, so we all have a little bit of empathy for what it is like to be an investor, because I imagine that their day probably is filled with 8 hours of binge-watching 30-minute pitch episodes back to back to back to back to back. And our job as founders is to be the most compelling 30 minutes of television they see that day. We are delivered on a screen just like a TV show. There's a beginning, a middle, and an end of the episode, and we get to control the storyline. The information that you share with your audience as an investor is can have many different forms, but that 30 minutes is going to be the anchor. You can send them materials beforehand. You can make sure that the way that you tell your story about yourself, about your team, about the problem, the time, and the opportunity feels so good to you that you can scream it over music in a club. If you guys have ever been to a party with me, you know this is what I do. And so I think feeling comfort and confidence in that story, exactly as you were saying, over and over and over again, but also having empathy for the person who's listening to you, who is going to have to write an investment memo that pertains to a specific investment thesis and make a case to their team. So if you understand what it is that their goals are, like we were talking about earlier, empathy for our audience, our counterparties' incentives, then we can go into that pitch conversation a little bit more prepared, because we know what they're looking for, we know what their day is like, and we have a rectangular screen to fill for that 30 minutes with what we think our best way forward to a yes is going to look like.
Yeah, I think that's a great advice. And I think that the biggest challenge is
They say raising is like dating, and I do agree. And they also say all the advice that you're gonna get ever is like have a deadline, like rush them. Tell them that you're finalizing in 3 months or 3 weeks, like what just Gabby said in the previous panel. Like founders go to funds and they're like, we're closing in 3 weeks. So, because yeah, investors tend to take their time, rightfully so, and it's good to have some sense of urgency. It never worked. Like I've never, yeah, it doesn't work. So what my advice is to counter that is it is like dating, and you have to build relationships long term. So as a CEO or person who is dedicated to raising within the team, your job is to court people for months or years. So prepare with funds that way, count your runway that way, that you need a shit ton of time to meet people, build relationships, because they, as they said, they're building trust with the founders. They're only investing mostly, at least half of the answers were team. So give them time to get to know you, get to know your motives, if they vibe with you, if they agree with you, if they see your ability to build a team, stand by your mission longer term, they will trust you so much more, and raising's gonna be, it's much easier to get done in a month, like people say, if you have a lot of rapport with people. And it's just a lot of time investment and effort, and you have to do it.
Yeah, I always say momentum is king, and also always having caffeine next to me. Also, enthusiasm, I think, is very important. I think something that I always remember is Evin, when I first met her, she literally introduced me to all of her friends. And she's like, this is the best founder ever. She's working in fashion, you have to meet her. And I was like, wow, that's great. It's like so enthusiastic. Anyways, I would love to talk a little bit on product market fit, because I think that's something that investors are always thinking about, right? So how did you guys prove that? Were you constantly talking to customers, alpha testing? What was that moment for you guys?
It's controversial. We, at Guild, we have heard both, that, you know, product market fit is this, product market fit is that. So I don't know if we have it or not, because there's no clear metric for it. But how you know your product's doing well and it's growing and it's being successful is you do need to have the North Star metric, that is your top tier, something you'd like to achieve. And then adoption, I think, is one, and retention of users. So are they coming back to use your product? Are they, you know, the perception of how much they like it, are they coming back to use it, and are you growing consistently right before you monetize? Because I think product market fit comes before monetization, and then after that you're becoming like a proper thing. So these three, I think, are the most important to validate yourself that your idea is working and you can turn on the taps and make money out of this.
I think that is an excellent framework, and to, you know, what we were discussing earlier about having you know, amazing teammates who can help guide us through these exercises where we are better understanding what is our market, what is our product, and where do they intersect. Actually, shout out to Carmen from the Disco team, who leads our research effort and helps us ask these questions every single week. So in terms of engaging with our community and seeking those early signals of what is working for people, what is clear for them, what is confusing for them, having a dedicated, continuous effort to that conversation that is guided not only just by our questions, but also by, you know, academic rigor and structure to bring us back actionable insights. That's been, you know, really meaningful for Disco, especially because the data primitives that we work with extend beyond the vocabulary that most people are familiar with in Web3. And so not only do we have to do education from a technical perspective, it's also from an end user experience perspective as well. And so when we think about product market fit, we also think about fitting together multiple products, because each of us builds a component in a composable ecosystem. And so your fitness to the market is not just to the idea or the way you could solve it, but rather also to the switching costs from where people exist today, how they're solving that problem, to the solution that you're offering.
No, I mean, like, big shout out to both of those answers, because it's somewhere in the middle of both is like where Sona lies. But a lot of the research that we did way at the beginning was sort of figuring out what were key actions that we had conviction people would or needed to take for this to work. And then it was like we spent a lot of time creating personas. So actually sort of mapping out what these different people were, because this product kind of crosses a lot of different types of people, from musicians to curators, collectors, and just passive listeners. And then we found as many people as we could in each of those buckets and had them blind play around with like a very, very bare bones version of what this was, and slowly mapped out a UX that worked from that and took that very, very early insight into how we built this out. So we're a pre-product, product team, right? Like we haven't launched yet, so a lot of it has been taking in that feedback very seriously, especially from folks that aren't in Web3. So speaking with people that have no idea, would have no idea sort of like what's on the other side of this product, and then like seeing where they like naturally flow. And if they actually do end up taking those actions, we're hoping they will, we're like, okay, we're onto something here. I think now we're in our alpha testing period, like it's a lot of actually following these actors and folks that are completely new to this project. It's a lot of testing. But yeah, that's all I can say is just like test, ask questions, and like make no assumptions that what you're thinking is the right answer is the right answer.
Yeah, I'm always saying, give a round of applause. I say it's always amazing, like that testing period. It's also scary at the same time. You're like, ooh, did I just make this and no one likes it? Oh God. But it's always constant, like a research. You're always researching, you're always trying to be better. It's like that constant drive you have behind, and I think that's the most amazing thing that I find in founders, is that you meet them, they've gone through all these hard times, maybe they built an amazing product, but they're still so inspirational. They really want to keep moving forward and keep bettering themselves. So I think the last thing I wanted to just end it with is, what is just one thing that is significant to you, that maybe a mentor has told you, that has stuck with you for your whole life as a founder, and what you would like to do to inspire the other ones?
Oh, that's so tough. I think something I think about a lot and I'm maybe not doing the best at yet is the fact that it's a lot easier to set out and do something when you see someone that looks like you who's done that before. And we're in an incredibly privileged position to be founders as women. And although my personality type wants to kind of be in the background and uplift others, especially other team members, and showcase how they're powerful in changing things, I think it's really important as a founder, especially now and in Web3, to like make a voice for yourself and be public about what you're doing, and be sort of someone that looks like you or thinks like you could look up to and see an example and see a bit of hope. So I think about that a lot, and everything I do is like, how can I make sure that, you know, another like Puerto Rican woman like who, you know, wants to found something someday could look something up and find me and see that they also have a path to doing that. So being a little more vocal about what you're building, not just sort of like standing in the sidelines, I think is very important.
Yes.
Two quick pieces of advice that have been really valuable to me. One is from my buddy G Money, who is a founder in this space as well, and he likes to quote from Kobe Bryant and remind us that they only hate the great ones. And so being a leader of your team in this industry, you invite a lot of feedback, solicited and unsolicited. And the extent to which you let that impact you is up for you to decide. To hear what is relevant and valid and embrace it and be thankful for feedback is one thing. To allow others to impose upon you things that you don't see in yourself and you don't welcome is another thing entirely. So I really am constantly grateful for him reminding me of that, as like odd of a reference as it might feel, it's definitely true. And the other is that blockchain is a multiplayer game. Literally, a blockchain by yourself is a database, and it is true at the human layer as well. Like, this is an incredible room of human beings, this gathering that Maggie's put together today. And so I guess my request for all of you is please leave the SheFi Summit today with a buddy. Blockchain is a multiplayer game. It is more fun if we do it together. We can succeed both in the party and in the protocol that way. So please leave this event with a new friend, check in with them next week, and see how your ETHCC went.
Goodness. That's sweet. Mine is one serious one, which is the past is the best indicator for the future. So when you're making decisions, look back, like what you did, what others did, what's going to happen. And the other is very similar, is even if you feel like you're not doing anything or it doesn't progress, you feel stuck, otherwise as well, but especially in these times, like reach out and people. I know a lot of us are introverts, but people. So focus on your relationships. They will help tremendously with everything, even if with a hug or like a lunch date to help your mental state. Otherwise, as well, hopefully, as we try to support each other, live with a buddy. Yeah, those two.
Amazing. Well, thank you guys all so much for showing up today. This has been so fun to organize. It's been great work and sweat, but we're all here, and I hope that you can take something away today and start ETC with a bang.